This is the Coach Maz Show, presented by Griffin's baseball alum, State Farm agent Alex Hetrick in Murraysville. Like a good neighbor, State Farm agent Alex Hetrick is there. Here's Dan Flickinger and the head coach of the Seton Hill Griffins, Mark Marizaldi.
Welcome back to a special edition of the PSAC Tournament Coach Maz Show here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Dan Flickinger with you now, and of course, the Coach Maz Show is always brought to you by State Farm agent Alex Hetrick in Delmont. And Maz, here we are, the first time that Seton Hill plays in the PSAC tournament at Slippery Rock. Very exciting time, certainly after a tremendous regular season. I have to congratulate you, first of all, 40 wins, a couple of really long winning streaks, and you're right where you want to be in first place in the PSAC West. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's good to be back. It was really weird not to be playing in this tournament last year. And it's just good to be back. I'm really proud of our guys. We absolutely earned this number one seed. I thought we had a shot to get here undefeated, which is crazy to even think that was a possibility. We've had some kind of up and down games here at Slippery Rock. This year we played really well. Last year we got swept up here. But we're going to have beautiful weather, insane competition this week. In this first round, I'm sure we'll talk about it being a single elimination, but we're excited to be here, and hopefully we can spend quite a long time up here.
Well, before we get into all that, let's go back to your last pair of games, the final games of the regular season against Mercyhurst. Obviously, on Thursday, things didn't go your way. You mentioned you'd like to get in here undefeated. You got swept in Erie, but you guys bounced back in a huge way with a couple of big wins against Mercyhurst to get you some momentum. Two huge wins, obviously, for regional implications and all that. But just talk about the way, Maz, that you guys were able to kind of fight that adversity and bounce back and get a couple of big wins.
Well, I felt like we beat two very good pitchers at our place, and Kelly and Foy. And we threw Leighton and Vecchiola, and those guys didn't give us a whole lot of length. I thought there was two keys to that day in that sweep against Mercyhurst: our bullpen and Jack Oberdorf, to be honest with you. Jack had a monster day, 6 RBIs, a couple of home runs. He swung the bat really well, but huge contributions out of the bullpen from Mike Marinchek, Blake Barker, Caden Wood. Our starting pitching obviously has been fantastic the entire year, and now when we needed it down the stretch here, our bullpen guys stepped up and threw some zeros up for us. So it was a great response. I would say the win was kind of taken out of our sails, taking a undefeated record up to Erie and losing 2 games, but I was really proud of how our guys responded to that and won 2 really big games to split that series.
Yeah, and the first 2 games of that series, Jack did not swing very well in Erie, but my God, I mean, there's been some great individual performances, but wow, that was pretty tremendous. He basically single-handedly, at least offensively, beat them in the first game, and then he had a few more hits in game number 2. I mean, man, was he locked in when you guys played them at home.
Yeah, that's what elite players do, right? They come through and they're big. When the game's on the line, they play their best games in the biggest moments, and Jack picked a good day to have a great day.
Maz, I also want to ask you about Noah Sweeney. We talked to him after the game, and the outfield has seen a lot of different players. I know Jared Dowie kind of locked it down for a little while, and then maybe his production started to slip a little bit, and Noah has come in, and the last couple of games, he's gotten some big hits, and he's really performed well. Talk about what you see from his game that has kind of earned him some more ABs.
Well, he was kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. He unfortunately suffered a pretty nasty fracture of his hand in the fall. And that happened early in the fall and took quite a while to recover. He didn't start swinging the bat until I think maybe January. I really think it's taken a good portion of the season for him to get his strength back, but he's a great kid and he's battled through it. And I'm starting to see a whole snowball of confidence for him right now. He's just a patient player. He's incredibly coachable. He's had a little bit of, ups and downs the last 2 years, but he always finds ways to contribute. And he's had some big hits and some big moments. He had our only RBI up at Mercyhurst the other day. But yeah, it's really good to see to see Noah kind of just have a role, be more of a role player throughout the year. And when his opportunity knocked, recently, he's been awesome for us and been a staple in the lineup the last week or so.
And one more question before we talk about the PSAC tournament. You guys had 10 players named all conference, a lot of first team all conference selections, obviously some second teamers in there as well. Luke Whalen named freshman of the year, and heck, who else were you going to give it to? And congratulations to you, coach of the year in the PSAC West. Just kind of talk about the accolades. I know that, they're just I don't know, I guess a rung on the ladder this year, but certainly a great reflection of those guys' performances.
Well, I looked at the list of our second team all conference guys. John McCullough, Kevin Voppel, Braden Durham, Logan Vittmeyer, and Owen Sable. Like, oh my God, that's our second team selection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the first team guys had tremendous years. A tough
Did I
year.
say Luke Whalen, by the way? Oh my gosh. Jack Whalen. Maybe someday I'll stop doing that. Please continue, Maz.
Yeah. But no, I got to imagine that 10 all conference guys is a record for us. I don't know if we've ever had 5 first teamers. We may have, but I think it speaks to both the talent and the depth that we have this year. Heck, you could probably make a case for a few other guys that could be on that list. But yeah, those guys have had a tremendous season. When you go 26-2, there's usually going to be more than 1 or 2 heroes along the way. So yeah, just really proud of those guys. But I know, for a day we kind of celebrate that, and I know those guys would trade those trophies for a trip to Cary in a heartbeat. So it's good that those things were recognized before the tournament starts. And now our focus turns to just winning one game at a time.
Talking about Jack Whalen, one final question about that Mercyhurst doubleheader. Take me through the inside the park home run. The center fielder dives, misses the ball. And I just felt as soon as he missed it, I'm like, Jack's going to at least try to have a feeling. What was going on there? I mean, were you sending him the entire way? Was that his decision? What was kind of going through both of your heads?
Well, that their center fielder, I believe it was a Chorba. He had been tracking down everything all weekend. We smoked some balls pretty good in the gap, and he seemed to get to them with ease. So to be honest with you, initially when the ball was hit, I just figured he got a good read and he just barely missed it. I thought it was going to be caught, and when it wasn't, it was a short triple. But the left fielder had to go such a long way because it went all the way to the fence, almost in dead center field. So Jack is a lot faster than Mercyhurst left fielder. So for every one step he took to go get the ball, Jack was picking him up and laying him down, getting 2 or 3 steps. So he rounds second. He's coming to third, and that's about the same time the ball was picked up and thrown into the cutoff man. And Jack is yelling at me at third base. He's coming, and he's coming to third, and he's saying, "Send me, send me, send me, send me." So at that point, I can't hold him up, and I just pointed to home plate, and they made it a pretty close play, and he beat the tag, and it was a huge momentum shift for us. And a quick story about that. I think that from if my memory serves me correctly, this is an awesome story. That's only the second inside the park home run ever hit at our field. The first was the first home run ever hit at our field back in 2006. I believe it was against Fairmont State by Brandon Whitfield. First home run at our park was actually an inside the park, and there hasn't been one since in about 17 years. So pretty awesome.
Wow, that's incredible. You mean Chris Miller didn't hit an inside the park home run at all?
No, not that I witnessed. No.
Yeah, give it up to Brandon Whitfield. That's a pretty cool story. Cool story. A unique situation for you, Maz, and you've been in this situation before. We've talked about it before. I mean, I know you guys have something to play for. Certainly, you want to improve your regional or lock down that second. Who knows? Maybe first place spot. We'll see what happens. So you guys still have a lot to play for, and you want to win a PSAC championship for God's sakes. But regardless of what happens, your season is likely to continue. Where Shippensburg probably has to win this thing. in order for their season to continue to get into the NCAA tournament. So, how do you kind of match their desperation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I you know, we've been harping all year about finishing in first place and call it bulletin board material, but we've been wearing a 6 on our practice t-shirts as a reminder that we finished in 6th place last year, and we didn't get to experience this PSAC tournament. In my opinion, I've always said this, and you've been around, Dan, to witness the postseason. This PSAC tournament is the most difficult tournament to win. The regional, there's a lot more at stake. The caliber of teams are really good in the regional, but to get through an 8-team tournament with the quality of teams that there are in the PSAC is brutal. So there's a lot to be said. If you can get through this tournament and you're the last team standing, that's an incredible accomplishment. But I know there's an AQ at stake for the winner, and we should have a good enough cushion to move on after this tournament if we don't win it. But I do think there's a little bit of resentment and regret that we weren't here last year, and now we've got something to prove that number one seed is that's who we are. And I think there's one way to prove that, and that's to get to the championship in this tournament.
And this tournament has turned into a single elimination tournament in the first round ever since Bloomsburg won the PSAC championship after they were the only undefeated team remaining a few years ago. The rain came, couldn't get in any more games, and so the coaches, I guess, voted correct to kind of change the format. Is that something that you're in favor of?
I am, actually, to be honest with you. The tournament is long, and I've seen, when you look at the NCAA regional, there's often years 6 of the 7 teams in that regional are from the PSAC. So there's a lot at stake, and I think, when you play an 8-team double elimination tournament, that means 7 teams are going to lose 2 games this week, and I've seen those 2 losses actually knock teams out of regional contention. So I like the do or die high pressure that goes along with that first round single elimination. If you want to stay, you better win on day one. It really makes you second guess your pitching, right? Like there used to be that mindset of, oh, it's double elimination, we got to save some guys. Well, you can't save guys for games you're not going to stick around and play. So there's a little bit of strategy that has to be considered in this first round single elimination. But at the same time, I think it may preserve some opportunities for some PSAC teams to stay alive for regional bids.
You played Shippensburg earlier this season. It was a 6-2 win. I guess a little bit of a strange game. There weren't whole lot of hits. I know it was real windy and that type of thing. The wind was blowing in that day, but you get the 6-2 win. We had to pull away late, in the game. What can you kind of take from that game? What were your thoughts on that win?
Andino Vecchiola gave us a fantastic start that day. You're certainly correct. We did not swing the bats well at all. If I remember correctly, Shippensburg was a little bit messy on the mound. They had given us a lot of free bases with walks and hit by pitches, and we weren't really able to convert as many free bases into runs. And there were some balls that were squared up on both sides that just didn't travel at all. Probably a lot of doubles and maybe a few home runs that, on a normal day would have happened. So a strange game is a good way to describe it. I don't know if either team walked away that day having a pretty good idea about the opponent. So even though we did play them, I expect to see a little bit different team again. We saw midweek pitching from those guys. I think they may have had a couple of position players that were injured and didn't play that day. And then the weather will be a little bit different. So I would anticipate maybe a little bit more offense from both teams today. And obviously, we're going with John McCullough, our 1A or 1B, and they'll be throwing their weekend starters as well. So should be a competitive game, a little bit different than it was a month ago.
And what can you tell us about Shippensburg? It's a team you've played in the playoffs in the past, certainly. I know you have a lot of respect for Matt Jones, a very good head coach over there. So what can you kind of tell us about this year's version of the Raiders as you look at them?
They're a blue-collar group that plays with a lot of energy, which is kind of typical of their team. They don't have a really big roster, maybe about 25 guys. So they have a lot of interchangeable pieces. I know they've had a couple of injuries. I know one or two of their top arms are out, but they play in arguably the toughest division in the country, in that PSAC East. And they've played the top teams really tough. If you get into the fourth place in the PSAC East, you're pretty darn good. And I know the teams above them, they've gone toe to toe with them all year. So I would say they're a dangerous team. And like you said, they got to win the tournament. I mean, they're fighting for their lives here, and desperation can be a little bit scary. So we anticipate them giving us everything they got, and yeah, it should be a pretty tough matchup.
You mentioned John McCullough. You're playing on the mound today. Let's talk about your keys to victory today, Maz, and then what do you guys have to do well to make a run in this thing and win your third PSAC championship?
Well, my message to our team coming into this tournament is let's try to be really good at what we're really good at, and not get away from, what's made us successful all year just because it's a tournament or it's a, lose and go home. We can't deviate from what's made us good all year, which is really good pitching, outstanding defense, and timely hitting. If I have to get more specific, I would say how we compete with runners in scoring position is going to have a real impact on the outcome of the game today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that's something that you guys maybe didn't even do well in that second game, the Mercyhurst doubleheader, or as often as you would have liked. You left some runners on base there. So hopefully that'll continue to go in the right direction here in the PSAC tournament. That's great to be with you. This should be a lot of fun. Certainly hoping for a long stretch here of games, and good luck today. Go get win number 1.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
That is the Coach Maz Show, the PSAC tournament version. We'll be back at Slippery Rock right after this message for First Pitch on the West Moreland Sports Network.